But if you're someone that's self-employed and you didn't have a 401k plan at a job because you don't have one, you're self-employed, it's up to you to set up your own retirement account. This is what this was made for. It was made for you.
Self-employed pension is where it kind of originated, that name, is really an old school strategy, but it still has a place in a very unique scenario, which is perfect timing for this time of year.
If you're a sole proprietorship and you want to set up a solo 401k for the prior year, you would have had to done that. Welcome everyone to the Directed IRA Podcast. This is Mat Sorensen, joined by the insatiable Mark J. Kohler.
Insatiable.
That's the new one I like for you, because you just can't get enough of Mark J. Kohler.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and today we got an awesome topic, though. We're talking about solo 401ks versus SEP IRAs. I don't know if we're going to take a position ourselves here. You got to argue for one, I'll argue for the other.
You know, I used to be very anti-SEP until I realized there's a great spot for them. And so I can't beat them up too badly. So, but I will say this, the SEP IRA, that's SEP, self-employed pension, is where it kind of originated, that name, is really an old school strategy, but it still has a place in a very unique scenario, which is perfect timing for this time of year. So let's break it down. I mean, maybe we start with what is best, and I think we can both agree that the solo 401k is where you want.
The solo 401k is best. We're going to explain the differences here, and we'll dive into it. But the bottom line, let me just say this for a solo 401k or SEP IRA. This is meant for the self-employed person that has no employees. We'll come back to this on the SEP IRA. There's a little wiggle room there. That has no employees. Now, this could still be business partners or family members that work in the business. You're okay. But the solo 401k, in my mind, is the right plan you should set up, because you can put a shiz ton of money in it.
Well, and I'm going to say too, I'll vary a little bit. The solo 401k could be a good fit as a stepping stone. You could use it if you had part-time employees, or maybe you just had your first full-time employee, but they haven't even been with you that long. You could get a little juice out of a solo 401k for a year or two. So I don't want to say they're all or nothing. But for any of you out there that currently have full-time employees or part-time employees that have been with you for over a year or more, we could get into the minutia there. But the point is, if you already have employees, yes, the solo is untouchable. But if you're on the cusp of hiring some, or you think you're going to hire some employees, don't shy away from the solo yet. You know, you can get a little juice out of it. And we may even play the solo 401k SEP combo for a couple of years. There's some techniques. So
there might be some strategies, and sometimes that juice is worth the squeeze, guys.
Ooh, all right, man, I just set that one up perfect for you.
That was just like you lobbed it right across,
right across
home plate. All right, well, let's talk about why the solo case is cool. Let me just hit that for a second here, because let me just say this. You can put $69,000 a year in a solo K. I can put $7,000 a year in an IRA. Cool. But if you're someone that's self-employed and you didn't have a 401k plan at a job because you don't have one, you're self-employed, it's up to you to set up your own retirement account. This is what this was made for. It was made for you. Okay? So you set up this solo 401k. It's an actual 401k plan. You have to have a pre-approved plan document, which we have. And then it allows you to be, as an employee of the business, someone who puts money in. And then the company, your own company, throws in a match, similar to the typical type of 401k. But the way the numbers work out is it's an amazing way you can get in $69,000 a year.
And that's if you're under age 50. It could be more if you're 50 or older. So just in the last couple of weeks, I did a video on the Mega Backdoor Roth, which is a play off the solo. Because what you're trying to do with this Mega Backdoor Roth, if you watch that video and now you're here learning a little bit more about the solo 401k and SEP and that dynamic, when Matt said you could do 7 in a Roth and then you could do 69 in a 401k, the real magic is doing both. So you start with the regular IRA or Roth IRA, then you throw this solo 401k on top of it, and you can go into the $76,000 range if you want when you combine the two. But the beauty is you get to choose that amount. A lot of times we have clients that are like, okay, I ran out of money. Okay, that's enough. And so you can work up to that amount. Now, the clients that are really killing it and they're having a great year, they're going to use that solo 401k to the max, use the Roth IRA to the max, and do that kind of combo Mega Backdoor Roth, which is a whole other topic, whole other video. But That's where the solo kind of plays into it too.
Yeah, and if you're like, well, I got employees, Matt and Mark, I want to do the solo K. How can I do it? Can I set up this entity over here, but I'll have my employees over here in this company and get around it? No. Okay, this is not what this is about. Strategies for that. That stuff does not work. And maybe you do have other businesses with different partners that are separate divisions. That's possible. You need some tax and legal planning on that. But for the self-employed person, and this is like you usually kind of get this lane of two options. Solo K and SEP IRA. Now, on the SEP IRA side, I know a lot of people are like, well, I can put $69,000 in a SEP IRA too, man. And I don't have to set up a whole 401k plan for it. I can just fill out some forms.
But the juice is not worth the squeeze, is it?
It is not. It's less worth it.
Yes, you kind of lobbed it. I went and grabbed it.
There's less juice coming out of that squeeze, all right? There's
because
less
of payroll.
juice in the SEP. Yeah, so why don't you explain that, like, because... I'd love to hit it, but
I'll give it a shot. And I think sometimes you and I say things in different ways that can really resonate with our listeners. And we're going to give you deadlines here too. We're right now in July, and during the year, this is a time where you can still take advantage of one or both of these strategies depending on your situation.
For 2023.
For 2023.
For last year, guys.
Yeah.
There's tax savings still if you've extended your return.
Absolutely. So we're going to give you deadlines and dollar amounts here in a moment. But staying conceptually with this, the problem with the SEP, even though you can get to the same finish line, you're like, I'm going to put in 69 grand. The solo 401k lets you get there with less payroll. And when you have less payroll, you pay less FICA. And I want to pay less F word. I do not want to pay FICA. But on the SEP, I get to the same finish line, but I got to take more payroll to get there. That's it. That's why the juice is not as worth as much, because you got to squeeze more out in other tax dollars. That's not fun.
Yeah.
But if you have some employees, you might do a temporary fix there. We'll come back to it. But that's the bottom line problem. Yeah. A solo 401k, you get to the finish line faster.
All right, now let's put some actual numbers on it and do an actual example here. Let's say you have an S corporation and you take a W-2 of $50,000. That's the critical number here, is what's on the W-2, either for your SEP IRA contribution or for a solo K contribution. All right, now here's how much you can put into a SEP IRA off of a 50K W-2. $12,500. 25%. The rule is 25% of whatever your W-2 is can be contributed into your SEP IRA when you have an S corp. And we love S corporations for our small business owners. Now, in a solo K, it gets a lot better. In fact, more than double. Okay. The first thing you get to do in a solo K is you're going to put in $23,000 as long as you made $23,000. And that's for your 2024 contribution. Plus, you get to do the 25% of that 50K. So now I've got $12,500 plus $23,500. I've got $35,500 that I can put in to a solo 401k versus only $12,500 in a SEP IRA. Oh. This is why 99 out of 100 of our clients do a solo K over a SEP IRA.
Okay, now let's do it. I love that example. That's an S corp with 50 grand in payroll, and your old school accountant might recommend a SEP. You're going to go, weep, 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 weep. I remember Matt's example. No way. All right, awesome example, Matt. Now I'm going to add example number 2. Let's say you're a sole proprietorship. You're a single member LLC. You haven't made an S election yet for whatever reason, and you're on a Schedule C as in Charlie. Okay, you make that same 100 grand. Make the same 100 grand. Well, one of the problems why we don't like that sole prop in this situation first is you're going to pay self-employment tax at 15.3% off the top. So that's $15,300 in self-employment tax. Oof. Now, if I choose SEP, I still get to choose between SEP or 401k. If I choose SEP, I can do 25% contribution on that whole 100 grand. And this is why old school accountants may say, oh, don't make the S election because you can only do 25% of your salary. Well, so they keep you in this Schedule C that's a nightmare, and you get the 25% on the 100 grand, which seems great. You get your 25,000, but I had to pay $15,300 in FICA to get there. Well, luckily, you at least find someone that was born since 1980, and you say, I'm going to have to do a solo 401k in that sole prop. Still not great, but here's what happens there. You still pay your 15.3%, so $15,300 goes out the door. But you get to do 20% of the profit, so that's 20 grand. Again, an old schooler might go, well, you get to do a SEP of 25% with a solo, it's only 20. Yeah, it's 20%, but you also get the deferral of 23. So on that sole proprietorship with a solo, even though you took that big crappy haircut of FICA of $15,300, I can do my $23,000 deferral and I get 20% of the profit. So I'm now at $43,000 in contribution with $15,300 in FICA, which kind of sucks, but compared to the SEP, it kills it. Now, circling back to yours, if I do the $50,000 in payroll, you might go, well,
I can only make the contribution off the $50K.
Yeah.
Right?
So $35,500, but how much did you pay in FICA?
Yeah, but I saved. I paid half in FICA.
Yeah,
right?
you saved $7,500. So you're ahead of the curve. I'm paying less tax to do $35,500, and that's why the S Corp wins in that situation too.
Yeah, and
tricky.
This is why we are S Corp Solo K guys.
Yes,
that's what we are, because we pay less tax. There's less FICA, and I can get more in a contribution. And that S Corp Solo K structure, I can get more in, pay less tax. I get more bang for my buck. This juice is freshly squeezed with less pulp.
Ooh, FICA being the pulp. Exactly. Very good analogy. You brought that together. Now, I will say this. If some of you are like, oh my gosh, I've got to listen to that again. My brain is mush. This is why doing a consult this time of year with a certified tax advisor from our network or in our law firm to help you make the decision on what you want to contribute for last year and how you maybe need to restructure for 2024. Because you can go, man, this is so, and this is confusing. Matt and I, we were like looking up our notes. What's our deadlines? How much? We do this every day, and we had to confirm these numbers just to give a basic example. So don't feel overwhelmed. Don't beat yourself up. Get an advisor to apply it to your situation, because married or single, employees or no employees. Woof.
Yeah, and we're going to hit the deadlines. What's the deadline to set this up? If I don't have any one of these types of plans, what can I still set up for 2023? Because we're sitting here in 2024, so we're still going to come back and hit that. I also want to say one of the things that's changed as of last year was we used to say use a solo K instead of a SEP IRA because you have the option of doing a Roth account in a solo K. And SEP IRAs typically, over the last 20, 30 years since they've existed, you could only do traditional dollars. But starting last year, and the IRS still hasn't given approved documents yet on this, so it's not reality, but it's coming out, is you can do a Roth SEP IRA. You can have Roth dollars technically in a SEP IRA once the IRS gets their act together and we get some forms out on that.
Now, before deadlines, can I add one other factor?
Yes.
Early on, we said where the SEP might work is, let's say you do have a full-time employee, but they're just coming up on that 1-year anniversary. When you hit that 1 year, they hit that 1 year anniversary, the solo K is dead, and you've got to just roll it out to an IRA, which is fine. You may have been funding that solo 401k. Now you have a full-time employee. You're expanding. You're scaling. That's cool.
Yeah. Or you could move to like a group 401k with all the employees. If you're planning to add more, it might be a good company benefit.
Yeah, and right now, the deadline to start your group or safe harbor 401k is October 1st. So this is for 2024. So that way you can be very proactive for this year, but if you have a full-time employee. Now here's the SEP angle. You can have a full-time employee up to 2 years before you can't play in the SEP. So the SEP gives you this extra year. Even though we don't like the numbers, they're still better than a safe harbor when it comes to what you can put away. Yeah. So that's why in a personal consultation, we may say, all right, let's pull the trigger on a SEP. Not ideal, but at least we can get 1 year of juice out of that before we go to the safe harbor.
Yeah, let me say this. Is actually, so you get an additional 2 years on top of the one. So let me
That's right. I'm sorry.
Way. Yeah. So like if you have that employee that's been there for a year and you're like, I can't do a solo K anymore. Well, you can do a SEP IRA for another 2, because the way that they look at employees in a SEP IRA is you have to include employees in your SEP IRA plan if they've worked for you for 3 years out of the last 5. Any 3-year connection that they worked for you in the last 5. So pretty much just think of it as a 3-year rule. You know, unless you have employees that leave and come back, then you got to add it up within the 5-year window. But otherwise, just think of it as that employee worked for you for 3 years. So we buy a little more time, and for a lot of small business owners or people that are self-employed, that are starting to add employees, they might have them kind of come and go. No one's there yet for 3 years. They're kind of a smaller operation. And so the SEP IRA, that's where we've been using it most,
Yeah.
is those people that are kind of like, crap, I don't qualify for the solo K because I've got this assistant that works for me or this other person on my payroll now that's been there a couple years, but I got another year or two of SEP IRA left in me, and so I want to contribute to that. Because, again, the SEP IRA is better than the 7,000 IRA. It's just not as good as the solo K.
Yeah.
So when we're crapping on the SEP IRA, we're crapping on it because the solo K is better when you can use it.
Yeah, they're just a middle, they're plan B. You want to go with plan A. Now, one other factor before we do deadlines too that we haven't brought up, you can self-direct any of these plans by setting them up through our KQS lawyers with a full service or going to Directed IRA, whether it's an IRA, a Roth, a SEP, a solo, or even a safe harbor. We've got the connections to help line you up there, but you can self-direct these plans when you go to invest the money. So don't feel like you have to be held captive at a Fidelity broker-dealer type scenario when you're setting up these plans either. We've got you at Directed IRA and at KQS Lawyers to help build the right plan for you.
Yeah. All right, let's hit deadlines, though, for SEP IRA and solo 401k.
For 2023.
For 2023, because some of you have extended your return, and you might be looking for some tax deductions and strategies. This is always one of the ones on our list. Our tax lawyers at KQS Lawyers, I mean, we have like more than a 25-point checklist, but this is one of the points, all right? And this is a good one. And this is one we love, of course, because it gets into building wealth and long-term wealth and for your future and your retirement. Okay, in a SEP IRA, your deadline is your company tax return deadline. So if you're an S Corp or a partnership, that's March 15th. If you're sole prop, this is April 15th, plus extensions. So I can still be setting up, if you've extended your returns, your business return or your personal return for you sole props, you still have time to do a SEP IRA for 2023.
Love it.
All right, now solo Ks, it gets a little confusing. It's a little complicated because we've had a lot of laws passed, Secure 1.0, Secure 2.0, and they changed the rules for S Corps, but not for sole props, so it can get a little messy there.
And it depends on essentially when you set up your solo 401k. So I'll say the easy part.
Yeah.
If your solo 401k was set up last year or earlier, and whether you're a sole prop or an S Corp, and you have extended, you got some time. You have until September 15th if you're an S Corp. You have until October 15th if you're a sole prop. That's if your 401k was set up last year or earlier. You got time. That's cool.
Yeah, you could still be making employee and employer contributions. Now, for those of you that are S Corps, you set up your solo K already last year. Your employee contribution's tricky because that should have been on your W-2 by January 31st, so you might just have time to be doing your employer contribution. And by the way, that $23,000, we call it the deferral. That's the employee contribution part. The 25% is the employer contribution part. And we've got an article we'll link here that goes over the contribution deadlines and rules as part of this podcast for solo Ks because it can get confusing, right? That's what, that's why our law firm exists, because of rules like this.
Yeah, and that's why wealthy people have a tax lawyer in their back pocket. And we are not that expensive. You may spend a few $100s having a consult once or twice, 2-3 times a year to help button down some of these issues, and it can make you millions. It really can. Putting this type of money away every year for just 10 years, you could have a couple million tax-free in 10 years. It's just amazing.
All right, now let me hit the rule let's start with sole props first, okay? If you're a sole proprietorship and you want to set up a solo 401k for 2023, for the prior year, you would have had to done that by April 15th. Even if you've extended your return, and this would be your personal return, even if you've extended the return, the IRS is like, nah, no dice. Now, if this was February or March, you would have had time because it was before April 15th, and you still could have made those contributions and got the plan set up.
That's the rule if you didn't have the 401k set up last year.
Right. So those that have no solo K.
Okay. Now, let's say I'm an S Corp, and I didn't set it up last year. Am I hosed as well?
No, the nice thing about that is in Secure 2.0, they gave you more time. And they said, actually, for you S Corp owners, if you set up a solo K, we will let you set it up until the extension deadline for the prior year. So now, again, you're going to have March 15th or up to September 15th if you filed an extension.
Now, important note I would say is that doesn't mean you can make an S election for 2024 and get this option. Yeah.
Someone was thinking that, huh?
Yeah, someone was already like, oh, I'll make an S election right now. I'm good. No, that S election must have been in effect for 2023. You just never got around to setting up your solo 401k. And they're like, that's cool. You have until September 15th. And again, that's the employer match portion. Yeah. So at least you're getting some juice out of it, which is still better than a SEP.
Yeah. And so for really practically speaking right now, if you're like, well, I want to set up a solo K for 2023, I'm an S Corp. You say it's game, Matt. It's game for employer contributions. Okay, so this is the 25%. Now next year you'll be able to do the employee and the employer, but you're not going to be able to get the employer contributions in because you didn't have the W-2 by January 1st, 31st, and you would have had to actually elected the deferral back in the year.
Now what Matt has opened the door to is the only, in my opinion, second reason why you would use a SEP. Because with that rule change that just occurred, it made the sliver of when you would use a SEP even smaller. So the first reason, remember everybody, you've got full-time employees that have been around for at least a year. You're like, I'll have to go with the SEP. I bought a couple extra years. I've got that 3-year rule Matt talked about. In this other sliver, you didn't get your solo 401k set up by April 15th. You're a sole prop. Man, I guess I can at least go use the SEP. And that's correct. You have until October 15th, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I can set up a SEP for 2023 and get at least some nice contribution into my SEP. But the cool part that I've liked is that that's only going to be a short-lived experience because you know better now. Yeah. So you're going to go out and open up that solo 401k. Yeah. The SEP's going to live about 3 days, and then you're going to roll it into the new solo 401k. So it's just a quick fix. That second reason would be the only other reason.
Yeah, and that is, we used to refer to that as I screwed up and didn't set up my solo K in time. Yeah. Sometimes there is that little angle where the SEP IRA is still viable, so we can use that. Another thing to think about, though, is sometimes some people might be like, I'm the S Corp, I can't do the employee, but I can do the employer. What do I do? I'm like, just do the solo already, okay? Because we know we can get 2024 or whatever year you're in taken care of because you set it up within that year. Let's go and grab whatever we can last year, even if it's not complete. Let's get what we can. But now you've got the right structure moving forward where you can start maximizing your contributions.
Yeah. I'm going to say this, and maybe in summary, is that if, again, this conversation can seem a little overwhelming, and so I want to encourage you to set up that fall planning session. A fall planning session right now in the summer, it could be, if you've extended for last year and this is still an option, you need a planning session in the next 8 weeks immediately. If you've already filed for 2023, you're like, hey, I got to learn this difference between solos and SEPs. That's cool. Now you need a fall planning session before year end because you want to be proactive. You don't want to get in some fix-it mood situation. You want to nail your W-2 in January properly. So set up a call with one of our tax lawyers. Our links are down below, KQS Lawyers. They'll build a trifecta plan for you. They'll give you a strategy that's tailored to you. You can express how much how much money you're capable of putting away. Is your spouse in the mix? Do you want to double down? We can do that too. Do you have kids in the mix? Partners? There's so many factors that you may not even know are out there that our tax lawyer in a really affordable consultation can bring all together.
Yeah, and remember, there are deadlines to get this stuff done, but the quicker you act, the more money you can get in. And if there's any takeaway here where you're like, I got confused in that, Matt. There are so many calculations and numbers you guys threw at me. I'm driving in the car, running on my treadmill. Here's the answer. Do an S Corp and have a solo K. If you want the dumbed down answer at the end of the day, what's our recommendation to you as tax lawyers? Do an S Corp and have a solo K.
Yeah. And I would recommend for those of you that are not experts in this, which is almost 99.9%, because these are complicated things, do the full service 401k. We have a full service 401k plan that's $1,000 approximately with one of the lawyers at the office. They're going to go through your situation, give you all the advice for this year and next, put you on a plan and a journey that is understandable. We do have a DIY, in a sense, docs only over at Directed IRA, but you're not going to get any advice there because that's something a lawyer needs to walk you through. So if you want to do the DIY, go to Directed IRA. There's places out there on the web that'll do it for free because they want to just invest your money. They know they're going to make more off of you in fees down the road. So be careful of those.
And all you can do is brokerage product.
Yeah, totally. So do the full service. It'll be well worth it. It's a tax write-off.
And business expense.
Business expense. It's good stuff. So,
all right, everybody. Thanks for listening in today to the Directed IRA podcast. See you next time.